Hi, so welcome. It is Friday and it's 2:30, so that means that it is time for Family Friday. We are coming to you here from the Museum of Northern Arizona, actually in the exhibit building, and it's so nice to hear people back in the museum again. And we have another exciting adventure to go on. We're going to be talking about how important bugs are and some other important animals, and they do something that is very, very important. Let's look at this butterfly. Not only is it beautiful, but it has an important job, and we're going to talk about that important job that they have to do. In fact, it is so important that a lot of Native American cultures celebrate insects, bugs, and you're looking at some artwork here. And we're gonna go around the museum looking at some other Native American artwork of bugs. So let's take a look at this beautiful piece of silver artwork that it has the little antennas and the little legs. That's an ant. And if you look over here, we have some beautiful metal sculptures of some pretty big ants. So we also have the cutest little insect piece of jewelry here, and it's a bee. And we're gonna find out today that bees have really important jobs. Cute little bee. Now, this beautiful piece of artwork with the turquoise in it and the silver, it looks like a beetle to me, so I'm going to count that as another insect, an important beetle. Now we have some other silver jewelry, and this bracelet matches the necklace, and look at the beautiful wings and the antennae. I think that's a butterfly. Here's some really creative bug artwork. This silversmith or artist turned a ring into a butterfly. We even have some beautiful butterfly earrings. They're so pretty. If you live here and you can come and visit the Museum of Northern Arizona, you can come here and go on your own scavenger hunt. You can go on a bug scavenger hunt throughout the museum. You could go on a reptile scavenger hunt. They're all over. We have some vocabulary words that I want you to put your listening ears on throughout our program today. Let's start with pollinate. That's what this program is going to be all about today. Pollinate is the act of transferring pollen grains from flower to keep the flower growing and spreading around. Pollinate. Now, you wouldn't have pollinate if you didn't have a pollinator. Pollinator, anything that helps the transfer the pollen from flower to flower. So an example is the insects, a lot of the insects that we've been talking about, bees, butterflies, and the wind can do it, and humans can also be a pollinator. We'll talk more about that today when we're in the garden. Another important word when you're talking about pollination is nectar. Nectar is a sugary fluid that comes out of a flower to encourage pollination. The insect or different animals sip on the nectar for food. While they're getting the nectar, pollen from the flower gets on them and they spread the pollen around. We'll show you more of that. Ecosystem, a community of living and non-living things that live and work together to support each other. We're going to go to some really important ecosystems today. Come on, let's go. Hi, so we are here in the Colton Community Garden, and this is the perfect place that pollination takes place, and you're going to find those pollinators here doing all of their great work. So we can even see here today that we do have bees, and they are getting on these flowers and they are getting that pollen grains on their little tiny little fur on their hair there. And when they go from flower to flower to flower, they are helping to ensure that plant, those flowers, are going to grow and continue growing in places. So we have a close-up shot here so you can really picture and understand what is happening with the flower and the insect, the pollinator that is doing its busy work. So inside this flower, you will see a couple different things happening. The brown, grainy little things, those are where the pollen is kept. And then the middle little part of the flower, that is the part that has the nectar, the sugary juice. So you can see from this flower the pollen and where to get the nectar. Another thing that you can see around Flagstaff, if you're here, the ponderosa pine trees, they have a yellow pollen, and you will see it on your patio furniture blowing around the streets. It is a quite bright yellow pollen. The other thing that I have seen around Flagstaff going on right now is you see these little fuzzy things blowing in the wind. That is the cottonwood tree. That is its little seeds and the fuzzy little furry thing that's blowing out in the wind, so hopefully other cottonwood trees can be spread and planted. The other thing here is that you can have a pollination habitat in your own backyard. If you have space, you can get some good dirt, some rocks, plant some beautiful purple, red, yellow flowers. Those really attract the bees, the butterflies, and you can even get a little stump. If you have a stump in your backyard in a big bowl, make sure you put a rock in it so we don't drown the insect. But water and food is a wonderful habitat for our pollinators. Now, if you don't have a backyard where you could actually put things in the ground, maybe you live in an apartment or you have a deck, that's okay. You can still have a pollination habitat. If you have big bowls or pots, you can get dirt, plant beautiful, again, yellow and red and purple flowers, and you will see bumblebees, bees, butterflies. They will all come and you can enjoy them and watch them. Now remember earlier we were talking about not only do bees, butterflies, not only do those insects and animals pollinate, or they're pollinators, but the wind also is a great help in the whole pollination game. So if you see these beautiful little flowers here, they haven't opened up yet, so those seeds are still inside. And if you saw our program last time, we talked about how important the seed is and how all of this beautiful plants and our vegetables come from that seed. Well, when this opens up, the seeds, by the wind, we have a very windy day today, those seeds will open up and the little fuzzies and all of that will blow in the wind, and that will help take this plant and the seeds and plant it someplace else. Humans also can be pollinators. If we get pollen in our hair or our clothes and then we go to other places and that pollen falls off of us, but the best pollinators are the bees and butterflies. So once you have your pollinator habitat all planted and it's going well, and you have bees and butterflies around, something else you might like to do just to support those wonderful insects, you might want to get a little bee house. You can go online, Google, and look for instructions on how to make your own little bee house, or you can go to Home Depot and you can just buy them and hang up your little bee house. Now, not all bees make honey, so these will be for the native non-honey bees. They will live in here. The honeybees, we'll see them next, okay? And a bat house. Bats are great pollinators. Not all bats, but a lot of them will pollinate. And we'll talk more about the bats. But if you love bats as much as I do, you can again look for instructions and build your own bat box. Make sure that it faces the sun in a warm direction, because the bats, they do, when they're sleeping, they like it nice and toasty warm. And maybe you'll see in the evenings bats coming out of your bat house. We talked about how some bees are honeybees, and we happen to have a domesticated honeybee colony here. We built boxes for them, so their home, their hive, is in those boxes. We have two families here, colonies, Marigold and Viola, and these bees are free to come and go. The reason why they're not leaving is because, and they've made this their home, is they have everything here that they need. They have the nectar from the flowers here in the garden that they eat. They will sip on that. When they go in to that little pod that's sticking out of the flower and they get the nectar, that sugary juice, when they go in there to get that, that's when those grains of pollen are in there, and they get that all over their little hairs, okay? And then they bring their bellies full of nectar and that pollen, they bring it into their colonies and they get to do their magic work. And bees, honeybees, are the only insect that makes food for us. Now, a fun thing that we do at my insect camp is honeybees actually dance. When they find the best nectar and the best flower, they want to tell all the other worker bees. And they do that by communicating, talking to one another through a dance. And at bee camp, we will put a flower, a fake flower, out, and I hide it. And all of the bees are in their little hive. And when I say, "Release the bees," all of the bees come buzzing out looking for that most perfect flower. And when they find that flower I hid, they're supposed to do the bee dance. And they go around in circles and they do the bee dance. They don't get to talk, they only get to dance. And when the other worker bees see them doing their bee dance, they know where the best flower is. So do your bee dance. So we came out here at 7:30 tonight, and we were so surprised that we actually got to see bats. We are just outside of the Colton Community Garden, and you can see that there is a bat house out here. And to our surprise, these great bats started coming out and getting ready for their evening work. Now, these bats are probably insect eaters. But there are a lot of bats, and I really love bats because they really get a bad rap. A lot of people are afraid of them, and there's a lot of myths or untrue stories that are out there about them, that they'll make a nest in your hair. They have way too good of ecosystem, the way that they fly, that they won't land in anybody's hair. And a lot of things are said about rabies. Any mammal can get rabies. But bats are very important. Not only do they eat thousands of mosquitoes a night if they're meat eaters, but the bats that pollinate, or they're pollinators, they will go around from flower to flower and especially here out in the Southwest where we live and on the Colorado Plateau, there is a plant called the century plant, and it's a part of the agave family. And it's a very, very important plant to a lot of the Native American cultures that live here. And that would not be able to grow if it wasn't for a certain bat that pollinates the beautiful flower that is out at night. It's a white flower, so you can see it, and the bats get their little nose in there eating the nectar, so they get the food, and then they get the pollen all over them, and then as they're going from flower to flower that night, they're spreading the pollen so the century plant can continue to grow. So don't be afraid of bats. They're really, really wonderful and help us out a lot. So we haven't seen moths out tonight, but they will be coming as it gets warmer. The moths, those are another pollinator. Not all moths, but a lot of the moths do pollinate at night. And you can tell the difference between a butterfly and a moth because sometimes moths do fly around during the day. And some of them do have pretty bright, beautiful colors. So how you can tell the difference between a butterfly and a moth is look at their antenna. Okay, a butterfly has very thin antenna and a little like circled dot on the top. But a moth, if you can get close enough to look at the antenna on a moth, they look like feathers. And those feathery antennas help the moth get around at night when it's dark and help them to find the white flowers that they can open up at night and they can pollinate. Now, a good place in the summer at night to see some moths flying around doing their moth work is underneath a street light or at your patio light, and you'll see a lot of the moths flying around there. Oh, the other thing that's very important with moths is there is a certain moth, a yucca moth, and the yucca plant, again, like the agave plant and the century plant, the yucca moth will pollinate the yucca plant. And that yucca plant is very, very important, again, to the Native American cultures that live out here west and on the Colorado Plateau. The yucca is a beautiful green kind of cactus that gets these beautiful white flowers. And a lot of the cultures out here will use the roots of the yucca to make soap. They will also use the fibers from the plant to weave and make things. So the yucca moth is very important so we can have the yucca plant. So we're back from the gardens and we're here at the exhibit building again, and we have a really fun craft for you to do today, all about our beautiful butterfly, and it's all about balance. So there will be a picture that you can print off from our website or off of Facebook, and it's going to be an image of the butterfly. So you can get some cardstock or some kind of colored paper, put your image on the colored paper, and you can kind of trace around it. If you need some lines to help you cut, or if you're an expert craft person, you can just put the image of the butterfly on your colored paper, and you can cut very carefully around and make the butterfly shape. Then, this is all about, we said, balance. So you're gonna get your butterfly and you're gonna have to play with it and find that balance, okay? It's balancing. If you had a beautiful butterfly and your finger was out, imagine that beautiful butterfly landing softly on your finger. Now, here's where the science part comes in. If you get some paper clips, and let's put one paper clip on this wing, and if we want to be balanced, what we do to this side, we'll do to this side. We'll get another paper clip, and we'll kind of put it on the same kind of wing, and then, whoops, I wasn't balanced. We can figure this out. It's kind of tricky now that it's heavier. Oh, and it takes you getting your rhythm, and there you go, you got the balance again of your butterfly. Now, what happens, this is where you can be, you can explore and you can experiment. Wonder if I put one paper clip on the bottom wing and one I leave it on the top, I'm going to be off balance. My butterfly is off balance. Or maybe if I put 2 paper clips over here and no paper clips on this side, oh, I can feel that side's heavier. Did you see that? So I hope that you will have fun making your balancing butterfly and do lots of experiments with your butterfly. Well, our time is up today, but I've had so much fun with you all and learning about pollination and pollinators, and I just love spending this time with you all because I love helping to remind us all to go out and experiment, be outside and look for the pollinators. Pay attention to your environment and what is blooming and growing right now. You will really have fun with it. Bye.